Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing? I am so nervous about this. I can honestly say I am bricking it. Music seems a bit loud today. Let me turn the music down a little bit. I might just be adjusting my headphones there. Right, so today we write chapter 1. We've done all the prep work, and today we actually get to do it. So let's jump straight in. Come on, let's get going, because this is gonna be. There we go. So, welcome to my screen. So, light. There we go, a little bit of light. I can see you all now. There we go. Right, okay. So, I've done some prep work. Lots of things to tell you. So, first thing is the piece of software that I am using to write this is called Scrivener. It is specifically for writers. It's kind of like MS Word on steroids. And the reason I kind of use it is because you can kind of break chapters up into various scenes. And you can do things like adding in your characters, places, you can put synopsis in, you can have notes to the side. I love it. This is what I write all my novels in. However, I've made some changes here. I've done some prep work here. So, something I found out the other day, trying to get prepped for this, was that whilst I have an idea of the story, even if I've got a fully fledged outline, I need to know what the next 2 scenes are. So I always want to be 2 scenes ahead, because otherwise, this is the problem. A blank page is pretty daunting. So you can see here, up here in the corner, it's not very big, I'm afraid. It's just the way that software is I have created 2 scenes here. The one that we're in now, and imagine this, the way that Scrivener works is it basically just kind of imagine if you had a load of like Word documents. So think of this as kind of like your My Documents folder. So this is the scene that we're going to be doing today, which is they find the device. And then the next scene, I think, is obviously they take it to Lord Quentin. What I've done in prep for this, so I've done those. I've kind of said, right, those are my 2 first scenes. We're going to write this one today. The notes that we made on characters. I'm not happy about these names. They may change as we write. Okay. Now, one of the things you can normally do is, if you're writing something, is if you don't like the names, you can kind of do, you got to be careful with it, but you can kind of do like a find all and replace throughout the whole document. Can't do that where we're publishing the story after the first chapter. So, and the story will be published on the website, www.adrianfaulkner.com. Plug. So I've also got my world building notes here and my story notes here, and these are all from our previous planning sessions. So the reason I've got them here, I normally wouldn't have these necessarily here, and there are better ways to, if you are using Scrivener, there are better ways to organize it. However, I'm throwing it all in here because maybe at some point in the future I might do a video on how to organize your manuscript in Scrivener at some point. Normally I would have multiple documents open. I would have maybe notes in Word open on another screen, because I've got 2 screens here. I've got my screen I'm working on here, and then this is another screen here. Now, this screen here is not being live streamed. It's basically got my stream up there, so I can see all your comments and things like that. So yeah, so basically I've done that, so I've got all that information together. But there are ways you can do it. Look, if you look here, there are areas to have characters and places. I am not using those properly. But you know what? One of the great things about Scrivener is that you can use it how you like. So I am using it this way. The other thing you may have noticed, I've got a little section underneath this one called notes. And what I will sometimes do when I write is I will look things up, and when I'm writing a first draft, I don't put a lot of description. That's just me. That's just the way I write. I tend to kind of try and get like the dialogue and the action down. Don't write a lot of description. I'm actually doing a project at the moment. I was working on it this morning, where I have to do a lot of description, and it's really interesting because I am noticing just how much I'm not. So, as I say, so it's just the way I write. Everybody writes differently. There's, you know, the idea behind a first draft is to just get something that you can work with. So it's getting that lump of clay, and then you start making it into something that resembles something. So the challenge here is to try and get something that is passable in one pass, which is going to be a challenge because I'm aware of where my shortfalls are. So, the thing that I've done is, because of my description, I'm kind of lacking on it a little bit. I grabbed some pictures off the internet. And what you will probably find is that as I write things, I describe them badly, and they end up looking different in your mind. So I'm using these as inspiration, and what I've kind of got here was I was doing a bit of research into I had an idea of this as like the castle where the Lord would live, something like this solitary tall building. And I started thinking, oh, you know, like that kind of Scottish moor kind of vibe would be kind of good. I had an idea about a peat bog. And the reason about this came about, funnily enough, was because on the news the other night, there was some news article about, you know, making your own compost and how, you know, sustainable peat was. And I thought, oh, okay. So that's where that's come from. So I looked for a picture of like a Scottish peat bog. So this is where they're going to be kind of pulling things out of. And then I kind of went, right, okay. And this kind of goes into the world building element of things. I did a bit of research into how does like Scottish agriculture work. Hiya, Will, how you doing? I'm not doing a gaming stream today, I'm doing a writing stream today, so I hope you all find it interesting. Thanks for joining. So I looked at like how the communities work up there. I did a little bit of research. It was just literally, I found something about like infield and outfield agriculture. Don't really understand it, other than the kind of like you would have these little, I think they're called crannigs, which are little groups. I'm good, Adrian. How are you? I'm really good. I'm excited. I've been working on this project for quite some time, and we get to write. I'm doing my profession is as I work as a writer. So what I am doing is if you like, a tutorial by doing, if you like. I'm writing a web serial where literally every single part of it's going to be live streamed. So the terrible first draft that people have when they first start, that's going to be there. So just going through like my prep, and then we're going to dive in. So I saw this this thing's about crannigs, and I just wanted to, like, I got this little picture, and the way that the crannig I think works is that your infield is where the ground is good and close by. That's where you put like your wheat, and then like your sheep farming, grazing land, and maybe some barley, because apparently barley doesn't need great ground or something. I don't know. You put further away. Thanks for the host, Will. Thank you. Hope that your viewers will find this interesting. So, those are kind of inspirations, and you know, I'm not saying that things will look like this, but you can kind of get an idea of what I am thinking of and describing badly. So, the thing to do with a chapter The first chapters are terrible. Any new alert, but I think it was the same one I've always had. But yeah, maybe they've updated it. I didn't know. Cool. So when you're starting a first chapter, whenever you're writing a story, might need to. There's a lot of fear involved in it, because you get. There are. I heard a new phrase today, was a phrase called the looper, and typically you have some people who, before they write, they plan down every little bit of the story. Those are known as the planners, the architects. Then you have those that just go, I don't know anything, I just got a scene and I'm just going to follow it and see where it goes. Just kind of a bit what we're doing here. It's not my natural style of writing. Those are known as the gardeners or the pantsers. You know, they're flying by the seat of their pants. And there's this other term called the loopers. And that's the people who write, and after they've written it, they'll go, oh, I didn't get that, I didn't nail that beginning just right, and we'll go back to the beginning, cancel it constantly. And I'm a bit like that. My first chapters are the things I rewrite the most and redraft the most, because we're trying to hook people into the story. We're trying to kind of establish character. We're trying to establish what happens. So I'm going to put some stuff in the notes here. I don't know how big it will be. So what we need to do with this chapter is we need to establish characters. I don't think I can increase the size of that. Oh yeah, I can do it. Do it as header. We need to establish the characters. We need to set up a situation. Introduce the world. Start the action. Okay. Will you do driving, Adrian? I'll try and pop back soon. Okay, well, no problem. Thanks for stopping by. So here's the thing, right? So we have got a lot that we need to do in one chapter. And where a lot of people go wrong, and myself included, I do this all the time. We try and work chapter 1 too hard, right? Where we go wrong is that we'll kind of go, well, in the beginning of time, and we'll just splurge all our backstory. We've got a whole story to tell it all. So less is more in many cases. You know, we've got a problem because we need all these characters to be in our story, in our first chapter. We're introducing a lot of people, and how do we make that interesting? So we've got, as I say, we've got, so my worries here are cramming in too much. I can't spell, you're going to find my typo. Much. And character overload. Changing the style of these scenes. So that's where my worries are. So I've tried to keep it fairly simple because I think that a lot of the heavy lifting in this is going to be in introducing the characters. So let's jump into it then. This one's going to be slow. This live stream's going to last as long as it takes for me to get this chapter done. It's Not a lot happens here, but that's the way it is. I need to change one character's name. I don't like this character's. I'm happy with Drummond. Gina, I'm going to turn that to a Y. Gina. It looks like gynecologist, so I'm just going to... I don't really care how people pronounce it. Just we've already got a D for Drummond. I'm going to keep Drummond. I'm going to swap David's name. I want it something slightly a little bit more fantasy. So and I usually just literally, I'm just like kind of thinking what letter would be good. Rose John. Rose, it sounds like Rose, it's a female name. Let's do something with Red, so his nickname is Red. I tend to kind of like just all I'm doing here is I'm going like right, Red, something makes that sound like a... I don't want to end in X because we got Jackson. That's... Let's try Marley. Different endings. I'm looking at different endings of the name. Jackson I like. Redagin. Doesn't really matter what you call your names because, you know, it's all what you feel. Yeah, I think that'll do. Right, we've just changed some names around. Just so I'm gonna try and ask questions as I write. I'm gonna try and think. You want something to hook people in. And so, what do we want is that they're in the peat trying to dig out these artifacts. So we could try. So let's start with something along the lines of this. So I'm going to write this wrong first of all, and then we're going to adjust it. Red could think of worse jobs than digging around in the bog, but at that moment he couldn't think of it. Now, this has got the potential to be a good sentence, but it's a bit jarring. It doesn't work. So Red could think of worse jobs than digging around in the bog. So what we're going to do is, how about, because I'm going to try and point out where I think the errors in this are. Red could think of worse jobs than digging around in the bog. It just feels a bit clunky, the thing. So how about there were worse jobs than digging around in the bog, but at that moment Red couldn't think of any. Seems a little bit better. I don't know. Let's give a bit of description. Up to his knees in water, and the sludgy was pulling up. Now, little thing here. Okay. We got a little bit of description here. And the sludgy was put up staying to high heaven. We've got like a little bit of smell. We kind of got a little bit of like the imagery there. He's water and the sludgy was put up staying to high heaven. Heaven is a worry here because that's religious imagery. So I'm going to allow it in this context. So we haven't done any world building on religions, but in some it might not be heaven. It might be the Almighty. It might be, you know, you might change high heaven into something. We want to have that familiarity by having something that's a little bit kind of slang. But you've got to just be careful that you're not. We're trying to normalize it, but not too much. So I'm gonna leave it in. This is interesting for me because, like, literally when I stop to talk, I'm losing a bit of my train of thought here. So there were worse drops than drinking around in the bog at the moment. Red couldn't, but at the moment, that's a thing. Notice I'm going back to it. At the moment, I read it back. Red couldn't think. Up to his knees in water and the sludgy was pulling up stank to high heaven. I was going to write, at least he wasn't alone. That's a little bit too clunky. So. So I've introduced Jackson. I don't know if what is this stuff is the right thing. Notice I'm not going to go in for... Now, there's a tendency here to say, oh, he stood this tall and he had blonde hair and he had red hair and he you know, weighed 150 pounds or whatever. We've got time to introduce that, so I'm not going to go too much. I want to make a joke about him being up to his waist being shorter. I don't know if what is this stuff is the right thing. This will go a lot faster when we get this thing going. I'm going to leave it because I'm going to give, instead of bring. Okay, thing I would think about here. I know that peat can preserve bodies really well. Does it cause a lot of rust? Do I need to say they're rusty? Pulled up a metal sheet of metal. So I'm doing. I kind of edit a little bit as I go. Okay. So what I've done is I'm establishing the situation that, like, literally they're digging, you know, we've established they're in a bog and they're pulling up something that looks metal. Okay. We haven't really given too much of the aesthetics of this world yet. So I'm gonna now pull out. So we've started with kind of this inside of Red's head, and we've kind of, there's stuff going on. Now we're gonna pull out a little bit more and say, we have to remember we're in Red's head, and there was a reason I chose Red as the the point of view for this. I think because we're going to be talking a lot about you know, literally like mutants and body parts being removed. The fact that he's disabled and he's missing a hand is kind of a good place to start. That's kind of, we're starting with that theme in some ways. So we're going to now sort of pull out and say, you know, saying, I don't even know if this is the right word. I want to put flat somewhere. I don't want to say it's all flat though, so maybe leave it out. In a few weeks, it'll be snow. Wrong word, but writing it anyway. Once been. So what we're doing here is we're establishing a bit of character here. So we're saying like, you know, we're saying that like where he's once had his left hand, he's lost it. But like, you know, you sometimes get like phantom limb pain, things like that. So I want to have something more where like, you know, the disability isn't like, oh, I just don't have a hand. There's problems surrounding it. And if you know anybody with a disability, you'll know that some days, like, if something happens, if they get too cold or too hot, it can trigger something, sort of think something off. Maybe I do start a lot of words, like things with conjunctions, like but and an. Put Clanlands. I'm going for that Scottish vibe. We don't have to necessarily understand as a reader what it is, but we get a vague idea that around here there weren't many opportunities. Trying to establish situation here. My original plan was that I was actually, because like I have set music I tend to listen to when I'm writing. I like music, and I came up with this brilliant plan that I was going to do was I was going to wear my AirPods and listen to the music I wanted to listen to while I had this track on in the background. And the reason there's need for different tracks is simply because copyright strikes. I want to put this on YouTube later and all that. I can use this music on YouTube and on Twitch without copyright strikes. Whereas the music that I'd want to listen to would probably get me a strike. But then I realised it's all linked to the same Spotify account, so I wouldn't be able to do it. So I was like, right, okay, so I'm listening to this then. So that's making things a little bit more complicated. I'm going to change that to outcasts. We're giving a hint that they're not part of the norm here. Slowly trying to build this big picture up. I want to put something here about like they get something from the serfs. Handouts. I'm thinking of going lead. Now, the reason I'm doing this is It's like the clan lands, the mountains, and I'm giving this like Crannig is that I am trying to give the reader kind of a little bit, a kind of Scottish vibe without them knowing it. So what I'm doing is, one way you can handle description is you can say it was this tall and it was this wide and it was, it was this color and blah, 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 blah. And it's a bit boring. So sometimes what you can do to paint a picture is by your choice of words. So like literally I'm doing things like the moors, the crannig, right? Even if I would go, I don't know what a crannig is, but it sounds like a Scottish word. Slopes of the mountains, the laird, the clan lands. It's all building like in the head of the reader. It's building a picture. It's kind of like it's like a psychological trick almost. I want friendly or sympathetic. He and his fellow house got by, but it was a daily cycle of poaching deer on the slopes of the mountains. Is deer? Yeah, that helps as well. And the mountains, handouts from sympathetic. Handouts from the slow surfs of Quentin. Don't like that word. That phrase. This phrase. Handouts from those serfs and things who were sympathetic to their cause. Two ways to spell roofs. I never remember which way's American and which way's British. I think both are acceptable. Most build. I'm worried I'm going into too much detail here. Do you know what? We don't need to know this. We can answer that later. Delete it. We've deleted stuff. There we go. I'm just conscious we need to kind of introduce all the characters. Thank you for the follow, Luna Sweden. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. If you're just joining us, we are going through. We're writing the first chapter of this web serial. Which is it's interesting to do as a live stream. Just checking the live stream. Can you? Yeah, it just about fits, I think. So. So he needs for. So let's read this bit back. I think I'm going into too much detail here. But there weren't many opportunities for a one-handed man in the clan lands. He and his fellow outcasts got by, but it was a daily cycle of poaching rabbits and deer on the slopes of the mountains. Receiving handouts. From those serfs of Laird Quentin who were sympathetic to their cause. Too clunky, don't like it, might be able to get away with it. And burning peat from the bog to keep warm. Clunky as well. So what I've put, he wasn't even sure that Professor Ben had Laird Quinton's permission to dig on what was technically his land. Few came out this far. The woods near the estate made for an easy supply of wood that would keep the serfs warm all winter. I don't like this bit. I don't like that they'll keep this. Don't need to necessarily say that. Let's just go for a little bit less. I was going to say, asked him what he was up to. That's just a little thing he's then actually. Trying to bring it back into the current thing, so try that. Jax and Jonah had come across the professor fishing items out of the bog and had come back to the rest of the group with the offer of 20 shillings a day for a day's work. Her name. This character here, Malia. Gonna change it again. Marley into again going with the Scottish vibe. Lock. Ghoul. That it seems Scottish. There's a temptation to go Lock McDonald or something like that, but you don't want to go. So what I'm doing there is I'm changing the vowel to a Y. Have we not mentioned anybody? We just need to just establishing names here. Red, Jax, Drummond. Drummond hasn't things, so let's put them into it now. I don't even know what I'm trying to type there. I'm thinking of something along the line. I've got some a joke, not necessarily a joke. It's kind of a bit of humour. I'm trying to establish the kind of annoyingness of Jax and the seriousness of Drummond. by having sort of a joke about saying, well, if we get food supplies, you won't need to work. Given too much information there, need to adjust it. I said boy, even though he's like a young man. I generally don't like doing these kind of little mini flashbacks. I don't want to get too kind of distracted and down that thing. I'm gonna put he grunted at the boy. Just gives a little bit more character to Drummond. Trying to steer it back to the present. Getting a little bit of a flow going here. And I've lost my train of thought. Even Mount. I'm looping round into what I've already said. Trying to establish a little bit of character again there. I don't know that what Maya is. Maya, this is what let's do. You have a word, and I think right. Yeah, Maya would work. Actually, Jax is in. Jax was in there, wasn't he? So let's add him in. Trying to think like when they lift their glasses up. Pay particularly close attention, no, so he could women, don't write girls. I've thought peace twice. I want to change that. Find. So I'm constantly kind of scanning back. I am gonna. I'll spell suspicious. Well, I can spell suspicious, I just can't type it. I might change his name to Drummond because I can't remember. Trying to make Drummond. Okay, I was going to say that Drummond was it, but that, like, basically, he doesn't have a sense of humor. I'm just going to say, like, it was a dry, humorless guffaw. They all pick on poor old Jax. I'm liking some of those dynamics already. I want to kind of be tempted to say like about his jinx and japes and his jokes he pulls on people, but it's better to show that than to say that. So all the little things we are doing here is we are trying to build character. Do you remember when we did the characters? We came up with, we had something where we said we had their USP, their unique selling point, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to establish in the mind of the reader who these people are and what they're doing. So, have we... Let's go through it. Gina, I don't even know if that's pronounced it. Yeah? Yeah, Gina. Have we established she's a plus-size character? I don't know, but that's a bit of a kind of physical attribute thing. But she does moan about a lot. And it does sound like we're dunking on her as a character a bit. But we're gonna... She's in a situation. You see, remember we had her reaction to defeat. She can't handle defeat. She needs comfort. She's in the cold. She's gonna be moaning a lot. So this isn't a positive area for this character. So she's going to come across a bit negative. We can solve that a bit later. The fact she's in this group kind of maybe establishes she's okay. Drummond, we've kind of said that he goes out to hunt. So we're kind of starting to build this up. Jackson, we have got him as a Joker. I'm liking this character. This character's jumping out to me quite a bit. Red, I am tempted to go back and change his name from Red to Redagin everywhere, unless people are speaking to him. The reason being because I think if I go Red, people will think he's got red hair. He isn't. And then we haven't really established Marley. So these are the things we need to do still. So with this little bit here, it's just a little bit of character that he would just like do that. And, he's left, he's muddy. Trying to build a bit of tension here. I don't make Drummond a bit of an arsehole, I think. I'm trying to think. Jack's whistled in through his teeth. We've got a little bit of body shaming going on here, and I need to establish an author that Drummond's in the wrong here, and this is wrong. The reader may say, well, I don't like Drummond and he's a bit of an arsehole. And that's okay. We've got enough characters here. If you've got a main character and this was the point of view character, it might be different. Because, you know, somebody might read that and just go, oh, fuck, it's just all body shaming. But the reason I'm trying to do it is I want Gina to kind of, and Drummond, I want there to be a bit of tension between the group. I don't want them to be a big happy group. You know, Drummond is picking arguments with everybody. I realise I've not put any description in so far. So we've done a little bit of dialogue there. We've established Drummond is a bit of an arsehole. This bad knee, I mean, it is a little bit of a Skyrim joke, you know. But I want the idea, because we're talking about mutations and things like that, like the disability thing. I like this idea. So, you know, he's a soldier. He's been injured in the war. What did we actually say about him? And in my head, he is less being played by John Bethnal, who was the Punisher. And he is now more Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead. Cool. So about now, what we need to do is we need to introduce the device. But we've also got to get the professor out of the way. Professor doesn't have too much of a character at the moment in terms of character. What I'm doing there is you don't want to keep saying shillings all the time. Sometimes you want to vary the words up. Another piece of scrap. This last piece, I'm just doing, what I'm doing here is just setting things up. Don't want to use something twice as much. Have a little bit of fun here. Shouting, not shutting. Trying to be more sympathetic to Gina now. Professor, look at this. I'm doing things all in the wrong place. Professor just left. Said. Oh, I'm all over the place. Trying to be a little bit more sympathetic to Drummond now. You know, he is helping. He is an asshole, but he's not, you know, there is something redeemable about it. Gina wouldn't have done. I can't even spell. Why can't I spell service? Jesus, I don't even think that's right. No. Do you ever have one of those days when you just literally you write something and you go, that word is wrong? It's completely spelt wrong, but for the life of me, because of the font or the size of the font, I just can't see it correctly. Oh look, they've bought the crystal. It's not. Oh god, my brain is now going. Drag the item not onto the beach, onto the bank. That's what I wanted. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Going back to Red because Red is the point of view character. Got to compare it to something they'd have in their world. So, like, it was the size of a. I'm just gonna do Gina rather than Meta. I'm trying to find a way that it pulses, that gives them their abilities, and then. Okay, so we've got to an explosion. Okay, we want to end it here. So this is what we're going to do. Is this scene, we've still got some work to do, but what we want to do is... So we would write that it would be the force of a 10-ton truck, but I'm trying to kind of relate it to our world. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to put this in now, is we're going to add a scene. So it's, we basically, they find the device. So the next scene is really going to be what happens afterwards, the after effects. This, we've got to have fairly short scenes, which is difficult because of the nature of the project. So having them wake up and going, oh, I've got a bit of a headache, something feels a bit weird. They don't have to know their magic abilities now, but things have happened. That's going to be a shorter scene tomorrow. So let's go through. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to do this in one-time edit. So we've done a 1,500 word first scene. So let's read it and let's see what the problems are. There were worse jobs than digging around in the bog, but at the moment, Red couldn't think of any. He was up to his knees in water and the sludge he was pulling up stank to high heaven. Something I thought about as I wrote is that they're digging stuff up, they're going to be wet all over. So we need to... This next bit will do. What is this stuff, Jax asked. He was shorter than Red, and as such, the water came up to his waist. To his waist. Got two ups. Poured a sheet of metal under the water. Sure, and as such, the water came up to his base. I think still to keep it up. Came up to his waist, came to his reached his waist. That way we get rid of the. So we're giving this a one-time edit. Thanks for the follow, right? How do you pronounce right? Yeah, hair. Right? Yeah, hair. So, he pulled up a sheet of metal with what looked like loads of wires attached. He handed it to Gina, who stood on more solid ground above, where she added it to the growing pile. Okay, yeah. The moors were cold today. The first winds of winter were blowing across the land. I like this bit. In a few weeks, there would be snow. Red looked forward to returning to the warmth of the cranny and getting out of his wet clothes. Okay, yep. The stump that had once been his left hand ached. The cold always did that. He would suffer tomorrow. Somehow... I don't want to have cold. We could maybe take this bit out. Somehow the cold had a way of getting into it, causing it to ache for days. Days afterwards. We're trying to also eliminate needless words, but causing it to ache for days. Causing it to ache for days. Yeah, we don't need that. Needless word. But there weren't many opportunities for a one-handed man in the Clanlands. He and his fellow outcasts got by, but it was a daily cycle of poaching rabbits and deer on the slopes of the mountains, receiving handouts from those serfs. Right, this is an example where I'm trying to tell too much. Right, we don't need to know about land. I'm gonna sneeze, sorry. And am I? No, and I'm not. Oh, I hate it when you're going to sneeze out. Yeah, so, like, sympathetic serfs. We don't need to mention Laird Quentin. It was here we can mention him. He wasn't even sure that Lord Professor Brennan had Laird Quentin's permission to dig on what was technically his land. Establishes, yes, serfs, things. Few came this far out. The woods near the estate made for an easy supply of firewood. Let's do firewood. That gets around the whole thing. But Jax and Gina had come across the professor fishing items out of the bog. Well, gathering herbs. Gathering herbs, maybe? But Jax and Gina had come across the professor fishing out items out of the bog whilst gathering herbs, and had come back to the rest of the group with the offer of 20 shillings for a day. It's not a day's work, it's 20 shillings a day. Pulling crap out of this shithole. That was a week ago, and at this rate they'd be able to send Marley into London for a nice hog. We need to save some... Oh. We need to save... We will. These are... It's just subtle changes here. We'll need to save some money for repairs to some of the walls, Marley had said, when they'd gathered in the room. This is possibly needless, but it does establish a bit of world. Remnants, the remains. And to get food supplies to last us through winter, Drummond added. What? Jax had said. And save you the joy of trudging through the snow hunting. I'll give you the bow and arrow, he grunted at the boy, and you can go next time. That was a week ago, and there was still debate going on how best to use their earnings. I would just rather not use money. Growing earnings. It's ongoing. I'm trying to link it into the present. They're growing earnings. Fred wasn't sure why all this scrap was buried in the bog, nor how Professor could afford to pay so handsomely. Even mentored down for scrap, their entire week's haul wouldn't amount to more than a couple of shillings. Fred wasn't complaining though. As cold as he might be, that money was worth putting up with Jax's jokes and Gina's moaning. Currently, he, Jax and Drummond were in the mire. fishing around in the muddy water for anything sharp. Originally, they had taken it in shifts, but Gina had complained of being cold, so she'd been set to work helping Marley. Originally, they had taken it in shifts, but Gina had complained of being cold. So she'd been set to work on the bank, helping Marley take the pieces the men found and putting them in a pile. "What is it we're looking for?" Red asked Professor Brennan, who was on the bank with the women, sifting through each piece, lifting his small round glasses so that he could examine a particularly important find. That's a little bit clunky. I'm going to give a bit of description here to the professor. Remember I said that one of my things is that... Who did we say he was? This is where we... See, remember this is where we... Jared had. So, I'm not given too much there, but I've just kind of added some bits to the mystery. I said nothing. Lifting these small round glass. Need to lift them up. He's just lifting them. That doesn't say. So he could examine a particularly important find. He'd not told them anything, and a few of them were becoming suspicious. Merge that into one check. This looks like it's been in an explosion, Drummond said, pulling another piece from the murky depths of the bog. Metal was twisted, and you could clearly see burns along one edge. And those markings aren't like any language I've ever seen, Jack said, glancing over toward the professor to ensure he wasn't heard. They whispered, just to kind of give that sense. Red laughed. "Can you even read, Jax?" The boy looked offended. "Yes, actually I can. I could read and write 3 languages before I had to shack up with you reprobates." Jack's got a hard time. He was the youngest of the group. As such, always got treated as a child. We could put a bit more in there. Okay, so I've just done that just to clarify. He was the youngest of the group, and as such, always got treated as a child. His skinny frame made him look younger than his 19 year. Don't need to say that. Merge that. It's implied that he was thinking. Gave as good as he got though. Scratched his ginger hair with a muddy hand, leaving a trail of muck across his forehead. Gina ambled up to. This feels a little bit abandoned. It's in the middle of here. It doesn't serve any purpose. Maybe not. That's... Bit of describe. Okay, so there we just giving her a little bit more character here. So, this would be a good place. What do we need to say about her size? Why did she leave? Let's try. She stole for Jax. Okay. If we cooked you, I wouldn't need to go hunting for deer, he said. You're always cold and hungry, Drummond shot back. What's that supposed to mean, she snapped. She'd not stand for any comment. Her size. If we cooked you, I wouldn't need to go hunting for deer, he said. Red could feel the argument brewing and turned his attention to his work. Yeah, we give her the impression she will fight back. Jax whistled in through his teeth. He obviously thought similar. Drummond, Marley shouted. Enough. I don't know if this needs to be done because it does. You know, we don't see that everybody else. One of the books I really love is the Rivers of London books, and they literally make a point of pointing out every character that's white, which I love. Just to put in a little bit of this description. Why are you starting on Gina? She ordered. There weren't many people who could get away with making demands of Jones, but Marley commanded respect. This kind of repeats this. Never remembered there being a vote or discussion when they first all come together. This might feel a bit clunky, because not even Drummond. Not many people who get away with making demands of their own, but no. It's slightly different, but it is kind of repeating. I'm gonna see if I can let it pass. She's always fucking moaning, he said. Cold and I'm hungry. That comma was fine. It just feels like a flow. Next time I read through it, I may change it back. I tend to go through this. I'm cold and I'm hungry. Oh no, he's mocking her, saying, I'm cold, I'm hungry. I said enough. Marley looked to Gina. Go up the professor, she instructed the young girl. I'll deal with this. Marley waited until Gina was out of her earshot, then crouched down on the bank next to where Drummond was working. I've warned you, Drummond, she said, so low and quiet, even Red had difficulty hearing. You either support the group, or you can go off on your own. You'd starve without me, he said, trying to ignore her and continue to fish in the waters. That's so, Marley said. How far that bad knee of yours gonna take you? Drummond looked up and swept the long, dirty, shoulder-length hair. I'm kind of out of his face. He glared at Marley. I thought so, Marley said. Play nice or play alone. I like that bit, I do. It's about the thing I like the most in this. Marley stood up and walked over to the professor. I think we're almost done here today. Don't need to repeat, Professor, she said. Everyone's getting cold and cranky. Very well, said the professor. Same time tomorrow. You've got the shillings, we'll be here. Taking the hint, the professor. I'm completely bombazled now myself as to whether that should be the professor. Professor. Taking the hint, the professor fished in his pockets and produced a handful of coins. I was doing business with you. I cut that out because Marley said. Red could feel a couple of pieces. Could feel something sharp. His feet. Grab this last piece up and then be done for the day. He reached down and pulled up yet another bit of scrap. He threw it to the bank and was about to get out of the bog when he glanced down. Something was glowing a pale blue beneath him. He went to tell the others, but something made him stop. He waited until the professor had mounted. The professor. I'm confused with it. It's Professor if that's his name. It's the Professor should be low. I'm just going to make it all lowercase. Fuck it. He went to tell the others, but something made him stop. He went until the Professor had mounted his horse and was riding away. You staying in there all night, Red? Jax asked as he clambered into the bank. Red looked towards where the Professor's horse was riding off into the distance and then said, I found something, give me a hand. We've been finding things all day, Jax replied. I'm not getting back in there, are you crazy? It's glowing, Red replied. Glowing? Come on, Jax, I've only got one hand. This is difficult enough. Jax sighed and jumped back in the water. He waded over to where Red was and looked down. Holy shit, he said, and then shouted to the others. There's something down here, it's glowing. Glowing, Gina asked. That's what I said, Red mumbled to himself. There'll be humour. Professor Brennan has just left, Myra. Get away with saying lots is said, but I do feel there's lots said. We should leave it for tomorrow. Different sentence. I do put 2 spaces after a sentence. Sue me, don't care. We not find it again, Jax replied, trying to Drummond to take the item free. It's stuck in here good. The item free. It's stuck in here good. Fine with Red. Here, Drummond said, wading over and giving them a hand. Let me help. took them a good few minutes, and with even Marley jumping in to help them, but they managed to free the item and bring it to the surface. There's some sort of crystal, Gina commented as she helped drag the item onto the bank. It looked like no crystal Red had ever seen. It was the size of a small pig and it glowed blue. We need a bit of description about the crystal. Can we? I'm going to cheat here. I don't think we should touch it until the perfect. No. I often do this where I write something and think, oh, I need to make a change, and then realise I've done it in the next sentence. I don't think we should touch until the professor has got a look at it, Marley said, as the device seemed to pulse with a light. Seemed to have disturbed it. Do you think this is what the professor was looking for, Gina asked. Drummond was busy clearing a bit of peat and muck from the surface so he could see it better. Crystal seemed to pulse with increasing regularity. Looks like some sort of container, he said. Don't know if I like that container. I still think we should leave it. Still think we should leave it alone. Stop worrying, Marley said Jax. What's the worst? There was a pulse of blue light that seemed to explode out of the crystal. The explosion of light hit Red in the chest with the force of a charging deer. The last thing he remembered being thrown backwards before everything turned black. Cool. So we have got one more change to do, which is I wanted to change Red to his proper name, Regigin. I'm doing a search and replace here. Well, not doing a search and replace. I'm doing a manual. Just mainly because I don't want... You don't want gathered to gather to gin. Only 1,500 words. Name that needs to be. Now this bit has taken us a little bit longer than we would have normally taken. Normally something like this would have taken me an hour. It's taken me 2.5. And the reason for that is because it's the first chapter. Now, normally I would go a little bit faster, and I would, I'd go a little bit faster, and I'd be prepared to kind of edit it a little bit more. So I'd expect to kind of like, right, I'll write this, but I will come back to it, and I will probably change some things. Now, I've gone a little bit slower because we can't come back to this. That's the scary part for me. So, what I'm going to do, I may just go through and just like commas and things like that before when I post it on the website. I will, you know, like there's the odd capital or comma or something like that. I'll give it one more read through. But otherwise, that is our first chapter. That took a little bit longer than I thought, mainly because I'm getting used to the format. I'm finding the music a little bit distracting from what I'm trying to write, but I can't. I need to get music that I can use on YouTube and things like that. So we will publish that, and then tomorrow we go to chapter 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically do all the after effects. So tomorrow is all about like having nasty headaches, and basically will end with them being found, you know, by Lord Quentin, and then they will have to get to take. If they get found by the soldiers of Lord Quentin, they'll have to take it to him. So there we go. That is it. So with that said, I am gonna start. I'm gonna end the stream there. So that was an interesting experience, I have to tell you. Lot slower than I thought, but it's been good. I've enjoyed it because literally I have had to really challenge myself to literally sort of work through this. So I think we've got a start. For a first draft, it's not bad. It tells the story. I'm sure there's something I've done that is probably bad or I'd want to change, but we will see. So thank you for joining, everybody, and I will be back tomorrow, same time, 3 o'clock, for chapter 2. Let's see how far. Let's see if we get a little bit quicker tomorrow. Cheers, people. Thanks a lot. Have a great evening. See you tomorrow.